Hello and welcome along, my name is Chris Hall, and this week I'm reviewing the latest episode of My Hero Academia entitled Inheritance. Now before we get into the review, I want to know what you thought about this week's episode of My Hero Academia. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what you thought about it, and you'll be read out in next week's show. And whilst you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is increasing scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today, it will do them a power of good. Now, on to the review. With a title like Inheritance, you really didn't need to be a genius to figure out what this episode was going to be about or where it was going to end up going. For the record, I never saw the preview for this week's episode last week. Or at least, I don't think I did. It's been a really crazy, busy week for me, so forgive me if I forgot about it, but hey-ho, at the end of the day, it really doesn't change my feelings about this week's episode really at all. I have to say that this week's episode was a solid one. Not necessarily as good as what we've had previously, but still a solid one within its own right. With that said, however, let us get into the positives as we always do at the start of a video. This week's episode was more action-orientated than what we had last week, providing us with an episode which feels as though it keeps up the pace of this entire mission very well, and it keeps the focus on our pro-heroes over our students, which is a point which I'll discuss the negatives very shortly. The animation, as always, was fantastic, though once again it feels like almost a given at this point. It really was spectacular to see, with some really rather brutal moments happening, particularly with Mirako, with her being pretty much torn to ribbons at this point. Look, I am sure that there are many people in the audience who would more than willingly volunteer to nurse her back to health. Though I still feel, for me, that the standout moment in this episode was the sequence with Tomura in his suspended animation coma thing. I think that it was one of the most creative and innovative and interesting moments we had in the entire episode, and one of the more interesting moments we've had in the entire run of My Hero Academia. I don't think it is one of the best moments, but it certainly is one of the most creative that we have had. There is a part of me that wishes it had gone on for longer, but the truth of the matter is that entire sequence was pretty much just reinforcing things that we already knew about him, albeit in a more avant-garde way, and I really don't think you could have dragged it out to a whole episode, because we've already seen all this stuff done in a far more conventional way, in a far more brutal and disturbing way, so I'm not really sure you can really drag that out to an entire episode, certainly without people starting to scream filler, as they often do with anything that isn't moving the plot forward like a machine, but that is a rant for another time. I feel that the cliffhanger bit that we had towards the start of the episode was solid. The whole bit with Hawks and Dabby, I think it was very well put together, though I will have to put my hands up and say that I've had the twist with all that revealed for me. It's already been spoilt for me by arseholes on the internet. So the impact of that moment has been drastically reduced because I know where it ends up. So, I'll give them credit because it's a neat way to set up the mystery, even though it feels a tad cliched. I'm getting flashbacks of modern Doctor Who for whenever they try to say what the Doctor's name is, and you have the characters, I know your name, Doctor, it is! And then they cut like 40 foot away from them so you don't hear it. And then you just cut to the Doctor looking rather stern and, oh, you know my name, rrr. And it's that kind of thing, only this time we zoom in and we see Dabby mouthing his name in silence, which, again, it's been spoilt for me. Don't spoil it for anyone in the comment section down below, but I know it. And, you know, let's just move on from that because I'm going to get into a rant about that and I don't want to, because at this point we're going to get into the negatives and I don't want to start off in any more of bad mood than I'm already in today. I feel that as far as the negatives are concerned, I feel that the episode itself was rather predictable, and I lend that almost exclusively down to the fact of the title itself. This episode's title was Inheritance, so you knew right off the bat that this was going to be an episode about Tomura in some regard, even an entire episode dedicated to him, or alternatively, more practically, this was going to be an episode that he was going to wake up, either before the container broke, or as the container broke, or after it broke, and it happened after it broke. And you know, or at least can come to a fairly solid conclusion that this Express guy, this hero that they've just introduced, is probably going to end up dying, because the moment that President Mike left the room, you know, yeah, this Express guy is going to be one of the first victims, and Tomura's killing spree is about to begin. It's going to be like something out of a fucking slasher movie, but that's where we're going with this, and that's the direction that it feels like the rest of this art is going to go in, but, you know, that's what it is. And I think that, honestly, had they called this episode anything else, it probably would have taken the impact of knowing what was going to happen out of it. Because, yeah, we know what's going to happen, even if you don't know the spoilers. You've got a good feeling that Tomura's going to break out and start killing people. But you don't know when that's going to happen. With a title like Inheritance, you know it's pretty much going to be in this episode it happens. Either he wakes up and starts killing people, or he wakes up and does it next week, which... I mean... I'm not going to linger on this too long, because I've recorded this review twice already, and getting to this part, it ends up descending into a rant, so we'll move on. I feel that, as I alluded to in the positive section, I feel that the students doing nothing is starting to become more of a bugbear for me. I understand why they're doing it on both a in-universe level and on a meta level, but at this point it feels kind of weak, and there's a part of me that wants to think that they're trying to do this to subvert expectations, because up until this moment, when we see moments where Denki is doing something heroic, we probably then have an episode about them shortly thereafter, or in that moment, which we didn't get. And with the stuff with Tokayame and Hawks this week, you'd expect that this would be a Tokayame-focused episode, and we didn't get that, but... yeah, it just kind of feels like it's more the pro-hero show than it is the story about Midoriya and his friends, which, on the one hand, I do like the fact we're seeing more of our pro-heroes being pro-heroes, but on the other hand, yeah, we do know whose name's on the door here, metaphorically speaking, and the fact we don't see that much of Midoriya and his friends, it kind of feels like heavy-handedly setting stuff up. I'm not going to speculate what that stuff is, but it feels like a case of, alright, these guys are probably going to end up saving the day, so why is it this predictable? Hopefully it isn't predictable and it's for something else, but we'll soon see. And my last point of criticism, and I'm not sure if this is something I can necessarily hold against the episode itself, but again, they talk about the quirk Doomsday stuff. And if you've been a fan of these reviews for any amount of time, you know that I really cannot stand the quirk Doomsday theory. I have always hated it, and I don't care how you present it, I always will hate it. I'm sorry if you're someone who's a fan of this idea of this theory, it just doesn't hold water for me, and it frankly never will do. And I'm not going to get into... this is another moment where I could go into a rant, but I'm going to head it off at the pass in here and say that I don't like it, and one of the major reasons why I don't like it is that it feels like it puts a time limit on the whole My Hero Academia universe. Like, either this is going to be the big thing that they have to deal with once this whole... story stuff is wrapped up, like that's the big final threat. It's Super Saiyan 3 Tomura going mental and doing Quirk's Doomsday stuff, and our heroes have to thwart it. Or alternatively, this is something that's going to end up being the main plot point in a My Hero Academia successor series, and I don't like that because I don't like the theory itself beyond what it might mean for the story, but that is a rant and possibly a video for a whole other time. As I said in the intro, or part of the intro to this episode, I feel that the episode itself was solid for what it was. I will admit that I feel that last week's episode was better. I think it had better drama in it, and I think that the action that we had in the episode the week before was better still. But this episode itself is fine, even if it is let down by the fact that it signposted itself a little bit too much, and I feel that it was a little bit too predictable for my liking. Though I will admit that I am someone who reviews stuff for a living, so I see these patterns, I think, more acutely than your casual manga and anime enjoyer, but that's just the way that it is. But, you know, what did you think about this week's episode of My Hero Academia? Leave some comments down below, and I'll get back to you shortly. And with that in mind, let's get into Comment Corner! Our first comment comes from X1, who says, I really enjoyed this week's episode. This, of course, being in reference to last week's episode. I feel it had a good balance between action and drama for me. And I agree, last week's episode was decent. I think that it's probably my favourite thus far in this season. Though I will admit that I feel that it kind of skews a little bit closer to just being more drama than action. This is not to say that the action wasn't any good, but it was certainly a lot more action-focused than I think that... oh, sorry, a lot more drama-focused than it necessarily was action-focused. But still, it was solid for what it was. I kind of feel that they had a little bit more of that balance this week, but still, it's good for what it was, and again, this week's episode was solid. Our second episode comes from... our second comment comes from Timeless, who says, Twice is dead, and his death marks a major tonal shift in My Hero Academia going forward, so start getting those tissues ready. Yeah, so I hear. And so has been spoilt for me by certain YouTubers out there. And again, not going to go into a rant about it, but I will admit, just about every single major plot point from the end of season 4 onwards, and way maybe like 2 or 3 seasons down the line, has been spoilt for me. I know what kind of things are due to happen in this arc, or possibly at least by the end of the season. I know some of the major plot threads are going to be coming over the next couple of seasons, and it pisses me off to no end, because it means that certain moments are going to be losing their dramatic impact for me. As earlier on I mentioned that they have the moment with Hawks and Dabby, and we know that for many people who don't know, this is a big, oh, what could they be saying moment. For me, it's a case of, all right, we're here. That's probably going to be coming in the next couple episodes or so. I know what it is. And I just say to all you out there listening, please, for the love of God, don't spoil anything in the comments down below. Just keep it to yourself. If you know what's coming up next, don't say it and don't allude to it, because I don't want to ruin it for anyone who doesn't know what's coming up. Because it's been ruined enough for me. Though I will admit, though, that the stuff that happened with Twice wasn't spoiled for me. I didn't know that he was going to die, and that's probably what made the drama hit as hard as it did. So if there's more moments like that I don't know that are coming up, I probably will have a good time. But at this point, it's a case of, okay, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory, is what it feels like. When do we get to the moment where X happens, or Y happens, or Z happens, and... You know, I'm not holding it against the programme, I'm holding it against scumbag YouTubers, which is, again, a rant for a whole of a time. But anyway, thank you all for listening. I know that my voice is starting to go at this moment. I'm still, I think, recovering from the disease that shall not be named on YouTube. I have recorded this video twice over, so thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do. And thank you all for watching, and goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!